Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of this series. Today we're going to be starting a new project. We're going to be jumping into Zbrush and we're going to be sculpting something very cool. So let's get to it. Perfect. So today we're going to be sculpting a kobold. If you guys are familiar with, kobolds are these creatures that you usually encounter in fantasy games, which are this sort of like lizard looking elements. In World of Warcraft they're not lizard like, they're more like rats. But traditionally in Dungeons and Dragons, there's this sort of like vermin, kind of like draconic thing, right? So we're gonna be doing this variant of a kobold, which is a vampiric kobold from Icewind Dale, one of the newest adventures from Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm a huge fan of. So I'm gonna be showing you tools, techniques, and stuff. We're just gonna have a good time. I'm gonna be showing you the process. So let's get to it. We're gonna start here in Zbrush. Now, usually I like to start with C-spheres whenever I'm doing a full character, and the reason I advocate C-spheres is because they allow you to keep your forms and your proportions really controlled. So you always want to have a main C-sphere, which is going to be your like the hip, your center of gravity, and you always want to have like one C-sphere on top. Let's turn on symmetry. There we go. One C-sphere on top, and one C-sphere on the bottom. For C-spheres, I usually work with my mouse, and then I'll jump onto my tablet. So let me look at this guy right here. So if we take a look at this guy, you can see that he has a very small body frame, huge head, and very long arms. So that's what we're gonna go for. Very important that we take into account which side we're on. So I'm gonna make the abdomen like really small. Gonna make the torso slightly bigger, and then from here we're gonna create the two shoulders. Let's go roughly at the halfway point. And then the head, it has this sort of like dinosaur or dragon-like shape. So I'm just going to create this sphere right there. W, click this here. Just scale this up a little bit. I'm pressing E to scale up to create like the general shape of the kobold's head. I'm not too worried about volumes right now because we're going to be adding or converting this into Dynamesh. And there is where we're going to be worrying about volumes. I am worried about proportions, though. Proportions are really important. So arms tend to be short. And then if you want to exaggerate something, forearms is where you exaggerate things. So you press Shift there in order to create... If you draw a new sphere and you press Shift, the new sphere that you draw is going to be the same size as the sphere before it. So let's bring the elbows in. This guy's out. Let's go for like a B pose. Like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna rig this guy or not, but I just want to make sure that he's as nice as possible. Hands, we're gonna be adding the hands later on, but I'm just gonna give it an indication of where the hands are gonna be, because I want to make sure that the length of the element is properly laid out. Let's push the torso forward, and then we're gonna create like the beginning of the hips, and he has a tail. So let's create a new sphere right here. Make it really small. Yeah, that seems about right. Then I'm gonna use Q to add a couple of spheres in between the areas. And just curve this down so the tail kind of like falls with gravity. And then on the sides here, we're gonna add like the Great Trochanter, which is that's not the Great Trochanter. What's the name of that? Where is it, the Great Trochanter? Let me just look this up real quick. That's a little bit of an anatomy lesson. Yeah, it is a Great Trochanter. So the Great Trochanter is the name of this like big area of the femur. This one right here. And usually when you have your hips, they kind of push outwards. So they're very important because they actually help with the balance of our bodies. They distribute the weight a little bit more efficiently, and that allows us to have a little bit more, or hold our weight a little bit better. So that's the Great Trochanter. I can see that the knees go all the way to roughly the place where the hands are. And then we're going to have a trilateral foot. This is very interesting because usually when we do humans, we have just like a traditional foot, right? So in humans, we have the femur going in like this, the knee, tibia, and the foot like this. Trilateral legs, like if we see this from the side, that's like the femur, the tibia, and the foot. Very ugly, but it's the idea. In trilateral legs, what happens is you are also going to have your femur. You're also going to have your tibia, but instead of having the heel all the way down here, it's going to be up here. And then the metatarsals, which are the bones that go from the heel to the bones of your fingers in the feet, they're gonna create this very long elongated element, and then the character is gonna be pretty much on its tippy toes. So the ball of the foot is gonna be right there. Rigging wise, you're actually gonna need 2 IK handles here to get the best out of this, and then there's gonna be like one general IK handle that's gonna control both of them. It's a little bit complex. Rigging a trilateral leg, it's a little bit more advanced, but it's very common because most of the aliens that we have in video games and creatures and stuff, they usually have trilateral legs. So that means that this guy right here is gonna go down. This is the tibia, the calf. This is where the calf muscles are gonna be. And then here we're gonna have the heel. And these are going to be the metatarsals. I'm going to make draw size all the way down. The metatarsals go down like this. And then from the metatarsals, we have the fingers, the tarsals. No, sorry. So the tarsus is the all the bones of the ankle. The metatarsals go beyond those bones. That's why we have the meta prefix there. Meta indicates that they go beyond the tarsals. These are the phalanges, the feet, pretty much. So there we go. That looks appropriate, I think. Probably smaller feet, something like that. And I usually like to rotate my legs around. This is not extremely recommended because it messes up with riggers. It makes rigging a little bit more complicated. But I like having my feet pointing outwards just a little bit. It gives a little bit of a better gesture to the overall character. So very simple there. There we go. And we got the general shape of our kobold, which is looking pretty good. This is the point where I would definitely save. And the reason why you want to save, of course, often is softwares tend to crash quite a bit. But also, in case I ever need to do another kobold, I can very easily keep this one. Let's create this one. Let's call this a vampire kobold. And let's call this kobold sea spheres. Now, a long time ago, well, not that long ago, but like 6 years ago or so, there was a tool that could be used, which was called C-Sketch. This one right here. And C-Sketch was this thing where you could like draw on top of your element. I can do it. I just did it once and learned it. It's a tool. I'm just mentioning in case you want to explore. It's a way in which you can sketch up like the general geometry of the muscles and stuff. But after Dynamesh, like there's really no need to do anything but Dynamesh. So I'm just gonna go all the way down here to Adaptive Skin, and I'm just gonna hit Make Adaptive Skin. This will create a new skin at Subdivision level 2, as you can see, and from here we can start sculpting. So now we jump onto the tablet. And let me just, there we go. And now we start working. So I'm going to use my clay buildup. Clay buildup is my go-to brush for pretty much everything. Some people don't like it because it's really extreme. Like it really creates like a very strong deformation. But I find it really cool. Some people really like the normal clay. So I'm going to use the snake hook there to create a little bit of a horn. And then with the move brush, usually when I start sculpting, the move brush is the first one I use to just rough out the general like shapes and silhouettes. So for instance, I know that I'm gonna need a little bit of a thicker what's the word, neck there. Now we can jump with the clay buildup and start sketching out. So there's a very famous muscle that we have here, the neck muscles. It's called the sternocleidomastoideus, and this one goes from behind the ears all the way to the pit of the neck. So I'm just gonna start sketching. Right now I'm not doing any sort of form or anything, just getting a hang of how this character is going to look. He's very skinny, so I don't want to buff him out, but I definitely do want most of the muscles to be showing, which is going to be important for us. This guy, the deltoid, which is the muscle that we have here in the shoulder, tends to be quite symmetrical right there. Now this guy has like a broken neck or something, like this. It's like a switch there, and then we're of course gonna have like the trapezius muscle. Long neck means you need to have strong like back muscles to support the long neck, but I don't want to make it seem like it's just fusing together. Usually when you're seeing the neck, you want to see like a straight line and then the trapezius. He's gonna have like this very tiny eyes right there. He's angry. He looks really bad right now, right? And this is one of the things I struggle quite a bit with my students whenever they're learning. They're like, but mine doesn't look cool. He looks like just like a cartoonish thing that the kid made. Yeah, that's how everything starts. Every single sculpture that we do starts like this, looking very, very dumb and stupid, but then it gets like really, really cool. He has a pointy chin, so I'm just gonna create like the pointy chin there. Dynamesh just to recalculate a little bit of the surface, and then we can start adding some form here on the chest. So the chest usually puffs out. I think the head is a little bit small, like compared to the concept, my head's a little bit small. If that happens to you, very easy fix. Just go here to the mask lasso. Mask lasso. I'm just gonna grab the head here, invert, move the pivot point to the center, and just scale up until you get like a more like appropriate head. Something like this I think looks a little bit better in proportion. The head is almost the size of the torso, which is weird to be honest, but let's roll with it. So it's gonna make it really cartoonish, but that's fine, we can work with that. Just smooth all of this out. Smooth. Use clay buildup to feel a little bit of this elements. Just carve in and carve out. It's gonna just like fill the whole thing there and make sure that the things are looking good. Yeah, now we can go into the chest. So on the chest, he has this very nice flaps, kind of like flap looking things. There's just like a membrane, like a very thin deltoid muscle going into the arm. It's very common in like this sort of creepy creatures. They do this like extra intense like membrane going from the chest all the way here. It's usually not that stretchy, or at least mammals don't have it that way. And then we have the chest muscles. They do go behind or beneath that line that I just created there. And a very, very important muscle that a lot of people forget about is the latissimus dorsi, which is this muscle back here, which is going to give you some form on the back. And it's also going to help you with the silhouette, because you can actually see it like popping here on the side. And it's going to give you this sort of like Dorito shape, like a triangular shape on the torso. The ribcage, very important. I'm going to have right about there. And usually after the ribcage, you have a little bit of a fall. So it's, you're going to see, this is very, very important in creatures. You're going to see sort of like a silhouette happening here on the front side. And one of the things you're going to notice is that, for instance, the pectoral muscle, will create a little bit of volume, like a shelf, kind of like this. And then it's going to drop, and you're going to get the rib cage. And then it's going to drop, and you're going to get the abdominal muscles. It's going to be like 1, 2, 3. This guy doesn't have that much abdominal muscles, so I'm just going to like fill this in with a little bit of like a belly. And then I'm going to use my trim dynamic to flatten this out, because I don't want this guy to be like buffed. So just flat here. And look at this. We've only been working for what, like 10 minutes or so, and it's looking very, very nice. By the way, thank you for anyone that's staying throughout the whole video. I would like to thank you, because I know that it can be a little bit boring to just like see. Hopefully I'm sharing enough tips and tricks here and there that it's being helpful for you. Leave us in the comments if there's anything that you want me to cover a little bit more in depth throughout the process. Just leave it in the comments, and I'll be happy to do so. Now the leg has this sort of like teardrop shape. I'm gonna have to push this because he's looking a little bit too wide. The legs are pushing way too wide. Legs usually push forward like this, and then we usually get like some interesting volumes here. We have a couple of courses regarding Zbrush. If you guys want to check them, I'm gonna be plugging them as well at the end of the video. But there's the demon creation, which is a little bit more advanced. If you're already proficient with Zbrush and you want to go into the full production, the demon creation for games is really good for that. And then there's the basic Zbrush one that just released. We also, I believe, we just released a Zbrush Core Mini. So if you don't want to invest on Zbrush just yet and you just want to do and learn the basics of sculpting, Zbrush Core Mini is a great way to do it. So I'm just gonna start using my trim dynamic to flatten and give this guys a little bit more of a form. And I can see from the concept that there's some muscles like flowing here from the side, and literally flowing into the character here. Usually here, we would get like the genitals, of course. Now these are reptiles, or sort of reptiles, so I wouldn't expect to have external genitalia. But I'm just gonna add like the basic form over there, just to have something. Over here, I would expect the pelvis, and right beneath the pelvis, we have a little bit of a dip. So that's important there to create a little bit of the shapes. There we go. Now let's jump onto the arms. Let's do a little bit of work on the arms. For the arms, we're gonna have, of course, the end of the deltoids. So deltoids are gonna just be, they're gonna go over here. They're sort of like this triangular shape. They create a little bit of volume. Do not inflate them like Goku. Sometimes people go like really crazy with the deltoids. No, they're flat. They're quite flat, especially on the top side. They're quite flat. What you are gonna see though, and this is important to mention, is the clavicles, right? So I would expect to have like the clavicles here, and they would go like back here to where the deltoid ends. Something like this. There would be like a little bit of a pit there, pit here, and then the neck muscles. Just sketching at this point, just sketching. I am gonna add with my dimming standard a little bit more of a membrane here for the deltoid. And then here on the arm, I would expect to have the bicep, which is a very long muscle that's going to be right here on the front side of the character, like here. And then we're going to have the tricep back here. So when you see it from the side, the tricep is slightly higher than the bicep. That's important. The elbow, I can see that it has a very like sharp elbow, so I'm gonna just give it that sort of effect. And then for the forearms, there's a muscle that goes from here, from up on the arm, and kind of like rides all the way down here. Now he has very long arms, so I would expect to have a little bit more mass up here, and then things start getting thinner and thinner and thinner down here. So let's just remove some of the mass there. There we go. And things are looking good. So I'm gonna delete these hands for just a second. So I'm gonna go into geometry, delete hidden, and when we do Dynamesh, that thing's gonna get covered. Because for hands, there's one thing I like to do. Just 1 second. There we go. There's one thing I like to do, which is to append some hands. So I'm gonna go into my insert IMM tunes, and let's see if we have some sort of like creature hand here that we can use just as a base mesh. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. So probably like this base hand would work just fine. But before I append it, he has very long fingers though, so I'm gonna make the fingers a little bit longer like this. Usually you want to have the hands like facing inwards. Even though in the concept they're facing like back, we can face back or slightly back like this. Now before I combine this, I'm actually gonna soften this up so that we get a smaller connection point. Move this to where they're about to connect, and we connect. That's gonna give us a start. This does not mean that that's gonna be the final hands, just a little bit of a start. Definitely need to use my move brush here to correct some of the curvatures here on the arm. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Yeah, those hands look really bad. I'm going to show you another method on how to do them. But I just want to have something first. Back here, let me hide everything for just a second and focus only on the legs. It's a great advice that a good teacher gave us. Try to mask out or hide things you're not working on at a specific point, because what tends to happen is you're gonna focus on things, and since they're incomplete, they're gonna kind of like contaminate your view, and you're gonna think that certain things need to be fixed when they're already like really good, and it's better if you just keep working on what you have. There we go. So here we're gonna have the calves. So I'm just gonna start adding a little bit of mass. Usually they tend to be a little bit like curved. Concept artists really like to like push the curvature of the legs there. And then back here, I'm gonna use my insert primitives to insert like a cylinder, just to give this sort of like a better shape, like on the foot. Something like this, just to get something to work with. And now we can use trim dynamic, dynamesh. Whoa, what happened there? Did I that's weird. There we go. I think it was because things were hidden. Let's do dynamesh. There we go. So now we get a little bit more volume there. You could also use your insert brush to what's the word, to insert like a base foot. However, especially for if you're just beginning, if you're just learning the basics of ZBrush, I strongly recommend you avoid doing any shortcuts, because any shortcut you do, it might work. I mean, it might get you the result that you're looking for, but you won't learn. So it's very important that you put in the work and the time to really learn the tools, because there's gonna be occasions where it's not gonna be possible to to use shortcuts. I think the legs are a little bit too long, so I am gonna grab these things, invert the mask, and just push this guy up like this. So shorter legs like this. There we go. And then train dynamic again to just clean stuff up. Let's get rid of a little bit of volume. I think he's a little bit too buffed there on the calves. And now I'm gonna bring the knees slightly up. You don't want the upper legs, in this case the thighs, to be longer than the lower legs. Pretty similar to what we had on the arms. Like if you're gonna exaggerate something, exaggerate the secondary part of the appendage, right? So short arms along forearms, short thighs along what's the word? Long lower legs, right? Otherwise, it looks wonky. It looks weird. And that's not what we're going for. There we go. Now, I'm going to go up here to the face, and I'm going to open the mouth. Very easy way to do it. Some people like to wait until the very end to open the mouth. I think it depends. Depends on the character. But usually, I try to open the mouth as soon as I can, because that way I can start working on other things, and it's not going to destroy like my geometry. So I'm going to reset the pivot point and move it all the way up until we hit the jawline, which is right about here. And then I'm gonna invert this. Actually, I'm gonna select the jaw, and then we're just gonna bring it down. And then with my move brush, or there's a couple. I'll show you another way. This is a cool way. So I'm gonna go for my insert anything. It can be like insert primitives. Let's just do a sphere, and I'm gonna press Alt. And by doing this shape that I just created there is actually going to be divided, or it's going to be subtracted from the main shape here. So I'm just going to make this thing bigger to create like the cavity here. There we go. So now when we dynamesh, boom. It's a little bit too big up here, so let's go back here. Dynamesh, and there we go. So now we have the proper element. I am going to give it a little bit more thickness on the borders, especially here where things became a little bit too thin. And now we have the proper jaw. I'm gonna use my move brush. Let's move this around a little bit. Because it does have this sort of like specific curvature. It becomes really like triangular back here. Let's add more mask here to indicate that there's a jawbone. Remember that one of the most important things about sculpture is to suggest that there's more things beneath the skin that what it looks like, right? So it's gonna be really, really important. Smooth out there. And now we can go to the eyes and start playing around a little bit with the forms up here. It's got this sort of like snout, like a dog snout. Again, adding volume here, sketching the nostrils. We're gonna have a zygomatic arch, very common in animals, which is like the shelf where the eyes sit. Something about there. Let's make him a little bit angrier. There we go. Looks cool. In here we're gonna have the gums and all that stuff, but we're gonna be adding that later. Now we can add the eyes. So let's do let's go up here to subtool. We're gonna hit append, and we're gonna append a sphere. One thing I'm gonna do with the sphere is I'm gonna change its material to this reflection red, and I'm gonna say MRGV up here. I'm gonna say color fill object. So now this sphere is completely filled with that like red color. Can go back to my starter material, and then this guy I'm just gonna move up. Position it right there on the eye. Smaller eyes give us a little bit more of a realistic look. If eyes are way too big, it makes it look a little bit too cartoonish. So I'm gonna go with a little bit of a smaller eye, something like that. And then we're gonna say C plugin, subtool master, and we're gonna mirror to the other side like this. Perfect. Clay buildup, go back to this guy. And now, since we have another subtool, that subtool acts as a mask, and it's gonna allow me to do the upper eyelids, like the blocking of the upper eyelids, and the lower eyelids as well. It kind of hugs the surface, as you can see. There we go. Now you can see there's a membrane going on the reference here. It's this one right here on the back side. That I would probably do it as a separate piece, even if this was to be animated. But in case you want to see how I would do it as a single piece, one thing we can do is we can mask. Let's go back to mask pen. We can mask out a little bit of a membrane here, invert the mask, and then with the move brush just push this out like so. Let's inflate this, and that's gonna create a workable membrane like that. Okay, I'm gonna close the mouth a little bit down here. That membrane should give us the same result. Because I'm thinking about doing a 3D print of this guy. I'll ask the guys here in the channel if we can share this, and hopefully we can send you a link to a Gumroad or something where you can download this guy once it's finished, and in case you wanna print it and use it for your games, completely free, of course, completely free. It has this sort of horns. These guys look like ears, so I'm gonna delete them. Same deal with the delete hidden. I actually have this custom interface where I have most of the tools that I use frequently, but it's just the same tools. Like, there's nothing out of the ordinary. Let's go for the chisel creature. And there's some brushes here with horns, like this horn 2. The only thing I don't like about the chisel brushes is that they go along the surface of your object. So sometimes it doesn't really work the way I want them to. So I'm gonna go with IMM Tune. Let's see if we have some sort of horns or something. No. That's fine. Let's just do snake hook. There we go. That looks a little bit nicer. A little bit more menacing, right? Because it's supposed to be a vampire. We're gonna have the little fangs later on. Right now we can just like suggest them here like this. Oh, some small like fangs. But we're gonna have the fangs later on. Now let's keep working on some of the muscles, especially on the arms. I think we do need to work a little bit more on the arms. So I'm gonna change this to select lasso, and I'm gonna select the whole arms like this. I really like the upper arm. I think we're close to what I'm looking for. Maybe a little bit more volume here to the tricep. That's gonna work. It's very fibrous. This guy has like all the lines going here. So I can go with the Damien Standard and just create like all of this like little strands of like fibers and muscles. He's supposed to be a vampire. You know, vampires are they're undead technically, based on like fantasy. They're dead and then they come back to life. One thing you can do is change the alpha to a round alpha, like alpha 6. It's also gonna give you a little bit more of an organic look. Now here, as I mentioned, there's a couple of muscles that we usually have. So on the outside, there's gonna be this like very long muscle going through here, and it crosses towards the front like this. On the inside, we're also gonna have a bundle of muscles. Let me go back to my square alpha. I like the texture that we're getting right now. So this is sort of like the bundle of muscles that we're gonna have here. And then we have another like triangular muscle right beneath the elbow, which is that one right there. The elbow's there. The tricep actually has a very strong tendon here. It's usually flatter, so I'm gonna use that information to really cover. We've been thinking about doing a full anatomy course. If you guys would be up for that, if that's something that you guys are interested in, let us know and we'll record it for you. Because anatomy is one of those things that people really need, but they really don't like to do it. People think anatomy is boring, when it's not. It's actually pretty fun. Okay, so I'm gonna delete the fingers. You'll see why in just a second. Let's delete hidden. There we go. And I'm just gonna do like the palm. So I'm gonna use the trim dynamic to create my palm shape. So for the palm shape, I would expect this to be a little bit more rectangular, like this. And then we would have like the pocket from where or the path from where the thumb would start. And over here we'll have like the knuckles. So it will be 1 knuckle, 2 knuckles, and then 3 knuckles, right? That's roughly where the hands are gonna be. So that means that in here, like in this area, things would be really flat, because that's where most of the tendons are going into the hand, right? Like the carpal tunnel, not the deceased, but that's like it's an actual place, which is the tunnel through which most of the nerves, arteries, and everything go into the hand. So if you have a carpal tunnel syndrome, you're gonna get some pains in there. There we go. Usually on the side of your hand, you're gonna have this little bone on the side of the pinky finger, and then on the other side you're also gonna have another bone. But the pinky finger is the one that's very obvious, and as you can see, it's a little bit higher than the one on the thumb. So I'm gonna go back here, and you can follow it. You can actually, if you touch your elbow, you can pretty much follow the whole bone all the way until the little bone here on your pinky finger. So that one's a very, very nice landmark to remember, because by adding it, it really makes it a lot easier to remember where things are coming and going. There we go, that's looking a little bit better. Now for the fingers, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create one finger and then I'm gonna duplicate it. So I am gonna go into this cylinder is fine. I'm gonna make this a polymesh 3D. Let's make this longer. Like this. Let's make Dynamesh. And now I'm gonna bend it because fingers usually have a little bit of a bend. So the first third, roughly about there, it's gonna be the first division. Then we're gonna bend there, and then we're gonna have a second third right about there, I would say. And we'll have like the last bend here. This last section of the finger is rounder because this is where the tip of the finger is. Now this guy has claws, so we're actually gonna have this sort of like a round shape where we're gonna have a nail. So we got something like this. Dynamesh is a little bit high, so I'm gonna lower the resolution quite a bit because we don't need that much. We are gonna have the knuckles though, and we can thin out a little bit of the sides here on the finger. This is the other knuckle, and then we're probably gonna have another knuckle here. Now on the outside of the fingers, it's usually very flat, very bony. Like this. And then on the inside, it's a little bit more cushiony, right? We're gonna have a little bit more volume here. Now another thing that happens, of course, is that fingers become they're really big at first, and then they become smaller. Let me turn off dynamic. There we go. So I'm gonna make this guy a little bit broader, and then the tip a little bit smaller, like this. Ambient standard. We're gonna sculpt a lot more things. Just a base mesh, right? Something like this. So now I'm gonna go back to my Kobold, this guy right here, skin. Oh my god. I did the delete hidden thing, and the rest of the element was hidden, so everything's gone. Don't worry, this is not the end. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna clone this guy. I'm gonna bring this back. There we go, to this place right here. And then if we say append, we can append the thing that we just created, which are the arms right there. So I'm just gonna go into my the older arms. Let's just hide them, all of this, like this. Let's try and hide most of the things, something like that. Yeah, that works. I am gonna bring this guy's up, and then this guy I'm just gonna say merge down. Okay. Oh, which one? Ah, yeah. On this one, we need to delete hidden. There we go. Now we can merge down. Okay. And now we can just combine. So, there we go. So, we just recovered a very nice little, palm that we created without losing anything that we had before. I am gonna straighten this guy a little bit more like this. There we go. Now, we're gonna go again here, append, and we're gonna append the little finger that we have, which is extremely huge, of course. And we're gonna position this in one of the hands. Let's break symmetry, of course, so that we can move this guy. Let's reset the pivot point so that we can go here. I would actually move the pivot point to the root of the finger, so it's a little bit easier to accommodate. It's very long fingers, so something like this doesn't seem out of the question. So that will be my first finger, and then I'm just gonna press Control Alt and move this forward. I'm gonna rotate slightly because when we close the hand, this is something that I teach my rigging students. when we close the hand, some people think that everything is completely straight, and when we close, everything just like bends very nicely. But no, we actually like kind of like go together. Like the fingers have a little bit of a rotation that make it go into a fist. So you can see that the pinky finger right here, it doesn't bend like completely flat. It bends like inwards like this. So by placing the fingers like this, I'm gonna make it a lot more natural, and that's not only gonna be visible here. Once we rig this character, if we were to rig it, we would see something like that. Now, before we do this, I'm actually gonna make this finger slightly bigger, slightly longer. Control Alt again, and again rotate this slightly. This is gonna be smaller. This is like the pinky finger. And the pinky finger usually bends a little bit more than the rest of them. So this will help in a couple of ways. First, it will make sure that it's a little bit easier to sculpt, because the fingers won't combine into each other. And second, we're gonna get a more natural look on the hand. See that? Like that hand looks way more natural. Now we're gonna duplicate one last time, but here we're gonna ignore the other part, because the thumb only has 2 divisions, right? Oh. So let's push this in like this. There we go. As you can see, the thumb is going in a different direction. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, and then I'm just gonna combine it here like this. And that way we complete the hand. We can dynamesh everything together. Make sure, because when we duplicate things, they become this like subtracting meshes. So we need to make sure to go here into our poly groups and say other groups. Now when we dynamesh, the only issue here with the dynamesh, oh wait, we haven't combined with the rest of the character, so let's go here. This guy, let's move up as well, and here we're gonna merge down. Okay. Now when we dynamesh, we should have this. Now as you can see, fingers are sticking together. This means that we need a little bit more resolution. That should save it. If it doesn't, another option is to, because this thing still has its own polygroup. Oh. There we go. So let's go to unmask center. I'm gonna move the pivot point here. Let's mask it like this. And what we can do is we can just like move it slightly to the side like this. That should give enough space to the fingers so that they don't get this sort of combined effect. And this hand, as you can see, it looks way better. It's still a base mesh, it's still just like the beginning of this, but look at this. We've been at this for about 40 minutes and we're in a very good position. We have most of the body. This is actually a body that I could send, probably not yet, but in just a couple of more minutes, I could send to the rigger and he could start like laying out the basics of the skeleton, even creating like all the controls and stuff. And once I'm done with the sculpt, I just send it and he will be a little bit closer to finished. Let me mask. Oh well, of course we need to do the other guy. So in geometry, you have this thing called mirror and weld, which will mirror from one side to the other. It always does left or right to left in case of the character. But if you go all the way to deformation and you mirror this guy like this, so now that the right hand is the proper one, we can go to geometry and we can say mirror and weld, and we're gonna have both hands ready on both sides. So the hands still seem a little bit small for what I'm seeing in the concept. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, of course, dynamesh there, and let's do mask lasso. Move this up, just scale the hands up, and we need to let's reset the pivot point so that it's easier to find. Like they have like this very cartoonish big hands, so probably not that big. There we go. There seems to be a little bit more like fat and stuff here on the inner side of the legs, and they seem to be a little bit more streamlined here on the side view. Yeah, and at this point, since we're not working on details just yet, the secret is just polishing. I am gonna use my trim dynamic to give the tail a little bit of a sharper look back here. And we can start working on some of the muscles here on the back. So we have this sort of like shotgun muscle there. And then of course the tail is gonna be connected, so the anatomy changes a little bit compared to that of a human. And I'm just going to start adding some stripy details around the character. Let's use the mini standard. Start creating like the fibers of the muscles here. Going into the character, I am gonna separate the pectorals. Something that I really like to do with like these creepy creatures is the rib cage. I like to break it down so you can see like the borders of the ribs, and then you see like the fibers going into the belly. Like this. Makes them look really creepy. Smooth everything out. Very important that we smooth and then we rebuild. Smoothing allows us to create this sort of like layering effect where things start looking a little bit more natural. Otherwise, it looks like the strokes and everything they become way too obvious. So same deal here. I'm gonna start adding like the folds that we would expect to see here on the abdomen, going into the crotch area. They do seem to have like some sort of like human legs, so I'm gonna make the pelvis smaller like that. There we go. That looks way creepier. Perfect. Yeah. And look at this cool dude. Trim dynamic. Let's remove a little bit of volume here on the sides of the arms. I'm gonna sharpen up the transition here on the shoulders, so it looks, as you can see there, a little bit more interesting. Now he should have some sort of like neck bites or something, so I'm gonna add some just noise there on the neck, indicating that he was bitten by a vampire, and that's why he became a vampire kobold. A little bit more detail here. Always don't leave any zone, any area of your character on sculpture or unattended. Like there should be detail pretty much, not detail all around, but there should be something, right? Like form or muscles or folds or something. It's very weird or very difficult to find an area on a character or on a creature that has absolutely nothing, just completely flat and empty. That's just not something that happens. There we go. Let's add the fangs. So I'm gonna add the main fangs first. I'm gonna go subtool, append. Let's do a cone. I'm gonna rotate the cone around, make it smaller, make it taller, and then with my move brush and symmetry turn on, or I can show you this other tool, which is very cool. Whoa. So I'm gonna say Dynamesh, and then I'm gonna go W. I'm gonna click this little thing, and I'm gonna go bend curve. And if I start pushing this point right here, this one right here, now that's the amount of points. I want to change this to, sorry, I'm having issues with my tablet. Smooth is fine. I want to do There we go. On the y-axis. And then we're just gonna grab this guy right here and push it forward. And see how everything bends in a very, very smooth way. There we go. So now just go back here to our gizmo. And position the fangs where they should be. A big question that students sometimes ask me is, do you need to model these things like fangs and horns and stuff as separate subtools? More often than not, yeah. Like, it's actually weird when we don't do that. Accept. There we go. So that guy's gonna be there. And then I'm just gonna duplicate to the bottom side because he does have like bottom fangs. So I'm gonna duplicate here and rotate 180 degrees. Well, it's smaller. There we go. Now I'm gonna keep the main fangs, this guy's right here, on one subtool, and then all of the other fangs we're gonna do on a different subtool. So I'm gonna say C plugin. Oh. Close this. There we go. C plugin, subtool master, and mirror to get the other set of fangs. Actually, we need to do this. C plugin and mirror. And now, of course, by having this fangs here, we should be able to start thinking about how there's going to be like a gum, like the lips of the character, pushing here. So we'll expect the fangs to push out, and then on top of that thing, we'll have the line like this, right? So we're still we still need some more fangs on the other side. But I know that we're gonna have this sort of line going all the way to this fiber over here that we have. And on the bottom side, we're gonna have something similar. Have this like membrane coming from here. Very careful. And this thing is gonna go right here. No, Thor, go away. Thor is my dog. You've probably seen him in a couple of videos. He's always resting right around here. It's my work buddy. There we go. So yeah, pretty good progress, I would say. Just an hour, almost an hour, and we're in a very good position. Let's keep going just a little bit more. I like to hit the 1 hour mark, so let's just go a little bit more. Let's see. He has hair. He's got like this, like tendrils coming out of the sides of the head. But that's very difficult to print, and also very difficult to sculpt. Anything that's super thin, it's complicated to sculpt. So let's just modify the forms here. Can add some sort of like ridges here on the nose side of things. Make him look really menacing, right? Let's add the tongue. The tongue is gonna be an important thing, so I'm gonna hit a pen. Let's go for a sphere. Going to position this on the back of the mouth, and then with the move brush and symmetry, of course, Dynamesh. And we can go all the way down here, isolate it. Probably give it a little bit more resolution for the dynamish. And usually the tongue has this sort of like pads on the front. Let's go. Let's go there. I'm gonna use my snake hook to give it this sort of like bifurcated effect. Make sure that things are not going like this all the time. You can get into issues there. When things are extremely thin, you start getting like weird stuff. There we go. You can of course go with colors. Some people like to sculpt with colors from the get-go, like just get an idea of how this thing is gonna look once it has its proper colors, but I don't think it's necessary. As long as your sculpt is looking good at this point, you know that the texture is gonna make it look even better. So let's define the... This guy's a little bit better. There's a couple of extra muscles that we have here, which are called the serratus. So I'm just gonna add the like fingers. Smooth them out. Train dynamic, just push them in. Them in a standard. Just go here and really bring them in. Now look at this handsome boy. It's looking cool. Let's fix a little bit of the muscles here on the back. We usually have the latissimus dorsi, which is this very big muscle, and right here we have a couple of muscles going into the arm, and then of course the spine, right? So see, just sketch a little bit of soften, and we have something that suggests most of the muscles working nicely. And that's what we want. We want people to look at this and say, hey, anatomy might not be extremely perfect, but for a 1 hour sculpt, it's not bad, right? Besides, if we print this guy, it's gonna be really small. It's gonna be like this big probably. So you're not even gonna see the details here. I am gonna give this guy a little bit more back here. It's this weird shape on the... There we go. Cool. So we're in a very good position, guys. I think this is looking very nice. As I mentioned, this is gonna be this week's element. I've been recording this every single week, so we've been like, this is live right now. It's what is it? It's Monday 28th. So I'm recording this just one day before this goes live. And this is what we're going to be working on this week. We're going to have the next video up on Friday, where we will continue with more details, more form, maybe a little bit of poly paint here and there. And if we're able to finish in one video, then that's fine. If not, we'll do one more video for next Tuesday, where we will have the finished piece. This is going to be all in Zbrush. So again, if you feel like you want to learn a little bit more about Zbrush, all the tools that Zbrush has to offer, make sure to check out the premium courses that we offer on our site. There are several premium courses where I've been using Zbrush, and there's a lot of tools to share. And also, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe so you get notifications for when more videos are up. Make sure to leave a comment if you want to ask any questions, say hello or anything. I'll be there checking the comments, so make sure to leave your word over there. And yeah, just, you know, the usual for YouTube. So that's it for me, guys. Hang on tight. I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.